What's going on, y'all? Let's talk about vocal fry because this is an endemic cultural phenomenon. What is vocal fry? Well, let me give you an example. I'm sure you've heard it, and this is going to sound painfully familiar. This is vocal fry. When I do this, I'm not even taking on any kind of affectation. The affectation just comes from the way that I'm speaking. I can feel my body, my state just change. I feel weak. I feel like I have no confidence. I got no sauce. Vocal fry is literally what's happening is when your folds are meeting, but there is no airflow underneath them. Now, psychologically, what's happening, that's a whole nother story. Why is this happening? You hear this everywhere. You hear it in dudes. You hear it in women. You hear it, I'm 33. You hear it in individuals in my generation. You hear it in the generations below me, and you hear it in the generations above me. Vocal fry often comes at the end of a sentence. You can be speaking with a whole sentence and making your point, and then all of a sudden you just kind of drop off. Keeping energy through the ends of your sentences is a related skill and de facto eliminates vocal fry. But first, let's talk about vocal fry. How can you eliminate it? All right, so you just get some breath flow going whenever you're speaking, and you keep that all the way through your sound. Two ways that we can eliminate vocal fry. There is the technical way through some exercises, bring the awareness into what it feels like to not have vocal fry. But then there's what I believe is the psychological underpinnings of what makes vocal fry happen. It is the lack of conviction, the lack of ability or willingness, courage to stand and to stand and make a point, to hold your ground with conviction and say something. Nobody really needs a voice coach. All I do is just help people get the result that they're looking for faster. If you have conviction, 99% of your vocal problems are going to be solved. Now, perhaps you improperly or suboptimally form some sounds that make up words. Articulation, literal articulation, skill number 2 of the 7 skills of tonality training. In that case, you can be as convicted as you want, but if you still have a lisp, well, sorry. What are you going to do? I can help you with that. And then if I can't help you, you can go and see a speech pathologist or a speech therapist. But this problem of vocal fry, this irks me to my core. This podcast is called The Sound of Leadership. Could you imagine following anybody, anywhere, into battle? I've never served. I've never been in battle. Taking orders, assigning your agency, taking direction from, putting yourself, your destiny into the hands of somebody who is talking like this. Hey, Michael, I need you to do this. Shut up. No, I will squash you. Like, that's not happening. There's just such a mismatch of power, of agency, of sovereignty. Your voice tells the world who you are. So for those of you who speak with vocal fry or want to eliminate it, There is no judgment here. Life is freaking hard. And I mentioned that with conviction, when you are tapped in and convicted, when you are speaking, I'd love to work with more or less anyone and everyone because I love what I do and I love the voice and I love helping people find it and bring it out and make them see themselves as the main character in a heroic story in their life. Having conviction solves for a lot of these things, for a lot of these skills. Hear that? A little bit of vocal fry. But part of what fascinates me about this work, what draws me to it, is that this is a gateway. Voice and communication is a gateway to self-actualization, just like another realm that I am obsessed with, that I have a ton of reps and a ton of fruit and a ton of qualifications, yada, yada, yada in, that I've helped a ton of people in, fitness and nutrition. Gateways to self-actualization. Any practice, any craft is a gateway to self-actualization. It's just what door do you want to go in? As one of my great models, Miyamoto Musashi, is credited with saying, if you know one thing well, you know 10,000 things. Or if you know one thing, you know 10,000 things. I have found that to be extremely true. Mind you, the more that I know something, the less I think I actually know. But if it's learning music or learning how to sing or perfecting the kettlebell swing or throwing a punch, right? I'm a literal white belt. And I've also had about 4 boxing lessons recently and about 7 total. But knowing at least as much as I'm comfortable saying I do know, because as I'm getting at, the more that I know, the less I think I actually know. Those things that I do have a lot of fruit in, my crafts, my practices, they have trained me in how to approach a new discipline, a new craft, a new practice as a metaphorical white belt and level up in it. But the reason why people need accelerated education, information, a safe space and container with which to learn and try out new things in, especially as I'm talking about now, just in the world of the voice. The reason why people end up there is because the world squashes this sauce, this natural, instinctual gift of communication, voice and communication out of us. So much of, actually, I'd go so far as to say 90% of what I work on with people is unlearning the unnatural. If you look at babies in the voice world, the professional singing world, a lot of very respected teachers use an infant's cry as a way to demonstrate or attune a student's awareness to optimal, natural phonation. And the reason that a baby's cry, well, let's go over the reasons that a baby's cry is so effective. I realize, as I said, that there's multiple reasons. A baby's cry is so effective because a baby can cry for hours on end, days at a time, and it never loses its voice. I'm not a parent. I don't believe I have any children out there. From what I have heard, parents can distinguish specific needs out of a cry that to a person who is not a parent All the cries just sound the same. But a parent can be like, their pants are full of poop. They are hungry. They're sick. So the baby is able to communicate even just with what is basically a vowel. Who knows what vowel? Ah, it's not one of the 5 pure Italian vowels. A, E, A, O, U. Some sort of hideous English American mixed vowel. Ah. But see, even if we listen to that, what's happening there is there's a perfect stroke of the glottis. It's not that breathy, obnoxious sound, but it's not where it slams together. It's comes together perfectly. And there's the right balance of chest, head, pharyngeal resonance in there. And when I imagine it, because I'm so kinesthetic, it took me so long to realize. I spent most of my life being like, I'm an intellectual. And if I identify as an intellectual, that means I'm smart. And anyone who's not an intellectual is smart. And it's like, nope, there's actually not a million, but a handful of different types of intelligences. They are all equal and great and necessary in their own way. I spent so long resisting my true nature, which is I am in the body. We're talking about singing and we're talking about lifting and training. What is more kinesthetic than that? So when I hear a baby cry, when I hear a singer sing, when I hear something going on, I'm like, what's going on? I try to put it into my own voice and think, like, how would I cue that? What's happening there? So in that example, the baby cry, what I hear is, oh, they're singing right on the front edge of the folds. Pedagogically, is that what's happening? I'm not sure, but it's what I picture. When I hear some really nice singing, and this is going to piss any of those opera snobs off. You know what? I don't care. When I listen to Josh Groban sing and I try to mimic what he's doing, that singing on the front of the folds is the first thing that comes to mind. And my singing is better. It is lighter. All the unnecessary heft is dropped out of it. And I still have all of the color that I'm looking for. The vibrato is nice and even. It's balanced. Front edge of the folds. Come un bebé, right? Just like a baby. Not sure if that was proper Italian. I say that I speak Italian come un Neanderthal, like a caveman, unconjugated verbs and whatever, but I can get my way around. If you drop me there, I do okay. Just give me a couple hours. So babies are able to do that for so long because they're just running on instinct. Now, where along the lines does somebody lose their ability to communicate so effectively the way that they were doing when they came out of the womb? Not me. I had the umbilical cord wrapped around my neck. Whole other story, which I actually might need a refresher on. Maybe we bring on my mom. But where along the lines do we lose this? Couple of places. Culturally, we want to sound the way that our peers sound. So we shift our voice in that way. But then it's like a desire to fit in. Now, another desire or another reaction of fitting in is like somebody tells you, hey, Michael, you're too loud. Now, I've been obstinate and creating little revolutions from the get-go. So if you told me I was too loud, I'm going to get louder or I'm going to stay exactly the same. Got a problem with authority. But a lot of people they'll take that to heart and they'll shrink back and they will shrink themselves because somebody told them once, hey, you are too loud, or hey, you sound stupid. Nobody cares what you have to say. And so then this affects us vocally, but then it also affects us, the downstream effects of this vocally, right? Yeah, maybe it shows up as we're speaking in vocal fry, but then maybe even in vocal fry, we don't even say what we're feeling, what we're thinking. We don't speak up at all. And so eliminating vocal fry is about so much more than just getting air underneath your folds when they're meeting. It's about addressing the psychological issues behind why the air is not underneath the folds when they're meeting in the first place, because that's natural. Your voice and your body are one. I mean, your voice is literally in your body. Your voice is your body. It's all connected. Your body's instinct is to move air when you are phonating. To double down or deepen on this point of unlearning what's unnatural, that is symptomatic of a disconnection to our bodies that we have. I read somewhere, I believe it was on a meme. I saw another meme that said, oh, you can't take memes that seriously. And it was like, hey, the American Revolution was started and propagated in bars and with what were effectively memes at the time. So I do take them a little bit, not more seriously, but give them a little bit more credit now. But what this meme said was, if you are overthinking, then you are underfeeling. And as somebody who would say that I've spent most of my life overthinking and now has been on a, as intense as I have approached everything else, journey of getting in touch with discovering my emotions and leveling up somatic, body awareness beyond just mind muscle connection for the acts of singing and lifting and training, that feels very spot on. So vocal fry points us to, yes, there's no airflow. And yes, you likely lack conviction in what you're saying. But it also points to, you are really likely disconnected from yourself, from your body, from what you're experiencing, from what you want, from what you don't want. And then it creates this negative feedback loop of, how can you speak up for yourself? How can you stand solid with conviction in any situation if you don't even let yourself figure out or explore or sit with where you're at, what you want, what you don't want, how you're feeling? How could you even figure out what you want to say? Right? Getting to the truth, broad concept, but getting to the truth in any situation, there is nothing more exciting than that. But how can you get to the truth if you can't even begin to look at what is, let alone be afraid to look at it? It's like, hey, you've got to go through that door and into the room that you don't know what's in there, but you can't even see the door. You're like, well, somebody told me there is a door somewhere that I have to go in, and inside there's something that I have no idea what it is. But dude, I don't even know where the building is. Like, my Apple Maps is not even loading. Like, what's going on here? That's where most people are at. And it's nobody's fault. It's nobody's fault, but it's where we're at. So we got to take some accountability and just do something with it. All right. Now, I have a free resource called Handsome Vocal First Impression. It's a series of vocal warm-ups that, when you do them, once you got the hang of it, if you do the whole thing, take you no more than 5 minutes. One of these exercises is particularly helpful for getting you in touch with breath flow and then adding voice behind it. And if you can do this exercise, this is the straw exercise. It's a semi-occluded vocal tract exercise, which is, or known as SOVTs, which is a vocal therapy exercise. It's used outside of the application for singers and professional voice users. It's typical, or its primary use case is for people who have experienced a vocal injury to help them retrain the use of their voice in an optimal, non-damaging way and to stimulate healing mucus, naturally occurring mucus on the vocal folds. For the purposes of singers and professional voice users, it's really helpful for, again, a bunch of reasons. Getting in touch with, just cueing in, warming up, consistent breath flow, and coordinating that with phonation without giving too much gas of either breath or of voice. Balancing registers. This is one helpful way or one step towards finding your literal, authentic, natural speaking voice. I got to do an episode on this, but there is another exercise that I like that always blows people's minds and reveals right away where they're speaking. It's usually too low. And this sort of psychologically distracts them or jumpstarts them out of it. But that SOVT is really helpful for not dying at the ends of your sentences. Yes. Again, like I said, that's a related, complementary, but another skill unto itself. But for starting to speak without any vocal fry. The other thing that you got to do to eliminate the vocal fry is to address the fear, the lack of conviction, the stories that you're telling yourself about why you can't stand firm, why you don't have conviction in, let's just say, a given moment. To figure out what you are convicted about, you've got to figure out what you believe, which means that you've got to identify the stories that you're telling yourself broadly or in a given situation and then stress test them. You really want to know what you believe? Try to prove yourself wrong. Try to prove to yourself that it's BS. Say like, hey, what evidence do you actually have to support this story that you're telling yourself is true? And then you figure out, well, what do I actually want in this situation or broadly? And like, hey, is telling myself this story going to get me what I want? Probably not. Okay, so now let's reframe it. Let's look at what you want in the story that you're telling yourself from a couple of different angles. This exercise, this process, when you train your way in thinking, or when you train your way in viewing situations in this way, helps you to come to the conclusion of, hey, this is what I believe. This is the story that I'm telling myself. And then, like I said, the more I know, the less I know. Then you're always ready and mentally flexible enough to pivot. But when you stop identifying with your thoughts or with your beliefs or with your feelings, then pivoting doesn't really cost you anything. Pivoting actually just gets you what you want faster. Related, this didn't come from a meme, but it's a phrase that I like. It's saying that I like. Do you want to be right or do you want to get results? Well, training yourself to think and process in this way helps you to get to getting results and let go of being right faster. This exercise also helps you to develop more empathy for, first and foremost, yourself, because how are you going to have empathy for somebody else if you don't have empathy for yourself? How are you going to love somebody else if you don't love yourself first? Another quest I'm on. I would like to call this a side quest, but I'm pretty sure this is the main quest. I love the idea of looking at life and the components as main quests, and then you do side quests. Like I've beaten the main quest of fitness and of voice use, I would say. Now I'm just doing side quests. It just tickles me. I played way too much Oblivion and Skyrim when I was a kid. Or maybe I played exactly the right amount of Oblivion, Skyrim, Fable, Knights of the Old Republic 2. Those are the only games that would hold my attention. Anyway, so that's the problem with vocal fry. That is how we defeat vocal fry. I'm going to make this might be the main quest. of the sound of leadership and of tonality training. Defeating vocal fry, because if we defeat vocal fry, as we've seen, it's a linchpin problem. And by the way, you can't, I mentioned articulation, the second skill of tonality training earlier. What I have found so recently with a handful of clients, when we focus on literal articulation is the linchpin hard skill, because if you can correctly, literally articulate, you are putting a proper amount of breath flow underneath your folds, or underneath, through, around, whatever, all of the above, your folds. Your coordination is correct, and your registration is balanced. Or at least the odds are very high that all of those are in place. So that's what we're doing. We are defeating vocal fry, one pair of vocal folds at a time. And we defeat vocal fry. Here's what we're going to have. Dude, I don't care what anybody's opinions are. I don't care. I want everybody to have completely different opinions. I want people to have opinions and beliefs that just collide with mine. If for no other reason than, like I said, I get results. I don't care about being right. In fact, I want to be wrong. Please, somebody stress test my beliefs and my opinions and my everything harder than I do myself. I have that's my close circle. My close circle are the people who do that, because didn't see it on a meme. Got it from some people who did this for me. Exposure is expansion. And I just want to expand. I just want to expand, keep growing, know myself more. Master more, but from a state of play. Like I said, these are all just gateways to self-actualization. And if we can defeat, only you can defeat vocal fry. So that's what we're doing. All right, y'all. I think I made my point. I feel, been training myself to say the word think less when feel would do. Because human beings, this is Bowtied Sales Guy, chapter 1, verse 1. Bowtied Sales Guy 101. We buy on emotion and justify it later with logic. And outside of a buying situation, that just means we act on emotion and justify later with logic. Hence the reason that understanding, seeing, not just figuring out where that building is, but looking at that door and going in it courageously is so vital. You want to understand the world and other people, understand yourself. Go forth and speak boldly.